Okay, thank you. Bye. All right.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Oh man, thanks for the, I guess the invite.
You got it.
And accepting it.
I know, right?
Goes both ways. Now, we're on the campus at the University of Texas, head coach Shaka Smart. Appreciate you being there.
Great to be here. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Before we get going, Coach, man, we got beef, man. You and I.
What's that?
I went to Oberlin College.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We had some battles against
We
each other,
did.
man.
We did.
I think you were maybe a junior when I was a freshman. You guys put it on us every time, so my beef is, I think I'm either 0 for 2 or 0 for 4 against Kenyon, man.
I think I had my career. I guess you got
I don't know about that, but you probably did. You probably did. It was some good Division III battles.
Y'all had some good guys, though.
Yeah, we're pretty good. We did. I mean, you know, playing for South Sellinger, myself and James Knight.
Mm-hmm.
James Knight was a pretty good player, man. Chicago as well. But no, it was incredible to kind of see you playing on that level and then doing what you're doing now.
Right. Well, one of the things that happens when you play at that level is you better love the game.
No doubt.
You know, you're not on scholarship. You know, they're not checking your classes. They're not making you do, either you want to do it or you don't want to
Exactly.
do it. And so for me, that was, you know, I just went and played for a coach that was really like a father figure to me. And
Coach
then,
Brown.
Yeah, Coach Brown. And then he left after my freshman year, so there was a void there when he left. So I decided I wanted to get into coaching so I could go follow him.
Is that how it all started?
Yeah, when he left, he offered me, he said, when you graduate, if you want to come work for me, you can. So I went and I was a graduate assistant for him. I made $90 every 2 weeks. I'll never forget that. But, you know, I was so happy, and I used to go to Subway, and back then, it wasn't a $5 footlong, it was $4 footlong. And I would get a footlong sub, and I would eat half of it for lunch, half of it for dinner. And I was the happiest guy alive because I was coaching, and our whole starting lineup that year, my first year in coaching, was older than me. Because in Division II, you got guys that have bounced around. And,
Right.
you know, been to different places, and you know, just lucky to get a chance to work with those guys.
How did that work as far as the respect factor? You say that you were a coach. The players were older than you. So how was that? How did you like interact with
Well,
them?
it was a great introduction for me into coaching, and the fact that if the guys don't respect you and the guys don't feel like you have their back, then they're not going to listen to anything you say.
Right.
Well, when you're younger, you know, it's got to be way more on the positive side. That was probably the beginning of positivity for me. It's got to be way more on the, you know, the supportive, understanding side, and then you pick your spots every here and there to maybe call a guy out, you know, when you're 22 and they're 25.
Now, when you first got there, when did you have the intent of knowing that, you know what, I want to be a college coach? Was that your purpose going in?
Well, yes, it was. I mean, when I was a player, I was just like every other player. I wanted to play in the NBA.
No doubt.
Right.
And then
D3.
you know,
I was the same way.
for you know 90-some% of players, you get hit smacked across the face with the realization that you're not good enough. You ain't gonna make it to that level, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work. You're not gonna make it there. And so for me, the next best thing was to get into coaching. And I wanted to, you know, learn as much as I could and hopefully someday become a head coach. But I'll never forget, Coach Brown used to say to me when I was a graduate assistant, he would say, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I thought, I was mad when he would say that because I would be like, "I'm already doing it, man. I'm in this."
Yeah.
But what he meant was you're young enough where you can go do something else if you want to. And what he was trying to tell me was this isn't for everyone.
No doubt.
When did you first find that out? That it wasn't for everybody.
You know, when I left, that was a school called California University of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So we used to call recruits and then say, hey, this is Coach from Cal U.
Yeah.
We wouldn't say the PA for about 3-4 conversations. We just say California because we wanted them to envision beaches. But when I left there after 2 years, I went to University of Dayton. And I'll never forget, I was a director of operations for a guy named Oliver Purnell, who's an awesome mentor for me. I made $24,000 a year, and I thought I had hit the jackpot. I mean, I was
from 90
I mean,
every 2 weeks.
I thought I was the most wealthy man alive. I mean, I got my own apartment. I remember my apartment. The rent at that time was $495 a month, and I was just loving it. But what I found, that was my first introduction to Division I high-level basketball. University of Dayton's a really good program.
No doubt.
And there's high expectations there. And so I learned about the the demands of the fans and the media and what happens if the team doesn't do well for a game or a couple games. I learned about all that stuff, and I realized that maybe for some folks that they probably don't want to be around that.
So that's when you found out about the importance of winning at a Division I school.
The importance of winning, meeting expectations, and then also the fact that this is going to be an all-encompassing job if you go about it the right way. And at that point I didn't have a family, I wasn't married, but I saw people on the staff that did, and I saw them make sacrifices where they were spending less time with their family than they were with guys on the team. So that again shows you it's just not for everyone, but if you do have a passion, it can be something that's really good.
One thing I always, when we do our podcast, I like to ask guys, and obviously the ladies as well, what were you like, at 15 years old? And obviously your name is Shaka. So my first reference to Shaka is Shaka Zulu, right? Yeah. So I'm sure you probably heard either some jokes or things like that when you were a kid growing up. But what were you like as a young player?
Well, for me, I came from a single parent background. My dad was never really a positive part of my life. He was in and out of my life, and when he was around, he was real negative.
Yeah.
And he didn't like how much I was into sports. But the one positive thing that he did for me is he gave me my name, and it did make me a little bit unique just because I was the only person that had that name.
No doubt.
And I've run into a few other people with that name, but for the most part, it's pretty unique. What I was like, I was a fun-loving kid. I love sports. I played a lot of sports, not just basketball. I love competing. I didn't really understand all the things that went into or that go into success. Like most 15-year-olds don't.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. My mom had really one rule, and that was don't come home with a bad grade. So I always did well in school out of necessity. I had to because she wasn't playing around. But I was just a fun-loving kid, and I wish I could go back to those days because coaching is fun, but there's nothing like playing.
No doubt. It's funny you mentioned that. Growing up very similar, except my dad wasn't around really at all, and so I always think that when you're an absent dad, it's kind of the best thing to do. If you're not going to be around, then just don't be around. Because you can really mess a kid up if you're kind of in and out of the kid's life. But when you are coming from a single parent, your mom, in my mind, was tough and very similar. Do well in school because you finished top of the class in Kenyon.
Well, what ends up happening is you try to fill that void somewhere else, and really that's why I'm in coaching because there was coaches that filled that void for me of being a father figure. There's only one dad. There's no replacing that, but a father figure. And I'll never forget, I would hang on everything that the coach said and every move he made, and I would always look out of the corner of my eye to see, was he paying attention? Of course he's paying attention. You're in practice or you're playing pickup or you're in the weight room. Of course he's watching, but man, I was so dependent on the positive affirmation from the coach.
Yes.
And I thought that everyone was like that, but not all guys are like that, because depending on the background you come from, maybe some guys are different. But that's the number one reason I got into coaching is I was hopeful maybe I can play that role for someone else. And again, it was different when I first got in because I was younger than some of the guys I was working with, so it was far from a father figure, but just hopefully as a mentor for these guys and filling a void for them or helping them understand something that they might not understand on their own.
That's interesting, because like you said, obviously we all basically in the same boat with that. Mine was absent totally too, but the deal about it is, like you said, sometimes you look for confirmation from people to make say that, you know, I appreciate, I like what you're doing, young fella, that's good. It's somebody that's giving you some positive feedback. And so, like you said, with you, now you kind of put that off on the players that you have and you coach. Now you have like a book, a page with like over hundreds of quotes on there, right? Do you like use these with your guys? You know what I mean?
I use them sparingly. I use them very sparingly because one thing I've learned is the golden rule does not apply in coaching. I used to think, hey, I'm going to treat the players the way that I would want to be treated if I was a player. They don't want that. So you can't treat people the way they want to be treated. The way you would want to be treated. You got to treat them the way they want to be treated. You got to coach them the way that is the best way to coach them as an individual. And as you know, I mean, you coach guys, everybody's different.
Right.
And so I used to send guys a quote of the day. And here's the quote of the day. I'd wake up in the morning, and like you said, I got a big quote list. So, I mean, I could do it for years. Here's a quote of the day. Some guys ain't trying to hear that. They're really not. So I use them sparingly, and sometimes there'll be something that someone said that is very applicable to what we're doing. And what I found is if a quote came from Kobe Bryant, or if a quote came from Magic Johnson, or a quote came from maybe a great athlete in another sport, that gets guys' attention.
Right.
You know, they want to hear that.
Oh, I know him. I know him. That's funny you say it, because you know what? When I found that out about you with the quotes, and I got like a whole sheet full of quotes myself. I do the same thing. It just interests me. And then like years ago when we first got together, I used to send out quotes to all the kids all the time too, and you know, you don't get any feedback.
Yeah. Did you get my quote?
You got any questions on that?
Well, you know, it's funny because I would send a quote of the day, and I still do it from time to time. I might send it to some kids with recruiting or guys on our team, and you don't get a response, and then you ask them later, hey, did you get the quote? Yeah, I got it. Well, did you like it? Or what did you think about it?
No response.
But, you know, I have a new thing with our guys, and that is the guys that write or call back, their playing time tends to go up.
Hey, listen.
And the inverse is true as well.
No doubt, no doubt. I got one for you. What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I had some oatmeal and some fruit this morning.
Where's this being a pancake connoisseur come from?
Oh, I love pancakes, man. I love, you know, it's probably my favorite food. So if I was stranded on a deserted island and I could only have one food, it would be pancakes.
Is it regular? Is it that you like the blueberry? You like the banana?
No. I don't like any fruit in the pancakes. No, and it's got to be real maple syrup too. Don't come with the Aunt Jemima. But I just, you know, I like wherever I live. I like going around to different places and trying out the pancakes. So in Austin, I've tried them at different spots. Before I lived in Richmond, Virginia, there was one place that had these off-the-charts pancakes. And a friend of mine and I both have a similar passion for pancakes, and we would kind of trade notes.
Really?
And we had a rating scale on a scale of 1 to 10. And this place in Richmond, which is probably the best pancakes I've ever had, it's called Can. That was a 9.5 out of 10. You got to leave a little bit of room for maybe somebody to top it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So do you do like IHOP and
Cracker
Barrel?
I mean, I
I'm
would.
just saying, because
Those are just like, those are fours.
Yeah, when you're a connoisseur, you going to the upper echelon of pancakes.
Well, I've tried it. It's kind of like chocolate chip cookies. It's only worth eating them if they're really, really good. But you know, I try to get them from the places that are 8s or higher. But you know how it is. If you're really hungry and you're at IHOP, you're gonna eat it.
Right. Oh, that's
a
classic.
good one. I just wondered. I was like, pancake connoisseur. I gotta find out about it. I mean, does you put your own butter on there? Does it have to come with the butter?
I'm not really big with butter or anything. I just give me the pancake and the syrup, and I'm good with that.
And that's got to go down like that.
What about you guys? What's your favorite food?
Man,
I'm a French toast guy. I like French toast.
Can you make French toast?
Nah, I can't. I can make toast.
I can make French toast.
I can make French toast.
I can make French toast.
French toast?
I can make French toast. So what you do, you got to go get the right bread.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go get a nice sourdough or French baguette, nice bread, and then. Do you like fruit on the French toast?
Nah.
You kind of like
you with your pancakes.
Yeah. I like butter though.
Yeah, I mean you gotta butter it up.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, don't you feel like it's the syrup that really
That
makes
makes
a huge
it.
difference?
That's a make or break. Yeah.
So there's a couple that comes to a game once a year, and they live in Maine.
Oh wow.
So it's about as far away as you could live in the 48 states.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to a game once a year when I was at VCU, and then they came last year to a game at Texas. And they always bring me some real maple syrup from Maine. So that kind of lasts me, for several months.
That's what's up right there.
You serious about this for real?
Hey, you gotta have a profession outside of your profession, baby. You gotta have something.
Listen, I'm the most boring guy in the world. I don't have any hobbies. I just got my wife and my daughter and then our team. So that's the one thing food-wise that I guess is a vice.
Speaking of wife, where did you meet her at?
I met her at I was working at University of Akron as an assistant coach. My wife's named Maya, and she went to Harvard and Northwestern. So she has degrees from both of those spots. So obviously I overachieved. And I met her on a blind date.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
Who set that up?
So there's a woman named Candace Campbell Jackson, who's a great friend.
Shout out to Candace.
But check this out. First, Candace tried to hook me up with her stepdaughter.
Okay.
And then we never ended up meeting because her stepdaughter, I guess, was dating some other guy. So then she set me up with my wife, Maya, and we met. We went out on a blind date, and the rest was history.
Did y'all talk a little bit before that though? Like on the phone back then, y'all talked, or did y'all just meet for the first time on that date?
I think we exchanged emails, and I don't remember if we talked on the phone or not, but it really wasn't much communication.
Right.
And then we went on the date, and the rest was history.
Remember where you went?
Went to this place called Jillian's in downtown Akron. I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a ridiculous outfit. It's funny how times change. I was wearing this tight mock turtleneck. That like if you saw me in that now, you'd be like, "What a clown! What is he doing?"
Please change your clothes.
Yeah. You wearing that, and like, were you nervous? How nervous were you before you like, man? I don't.
No, I wasn't really nervous. I don't get too nervous about stuff like that.
A blind date?
I mean, I was just hoping it was going to go well, but to be honest, when it's a blind date, your expectations can't be that high because you just don't know much about the person. But it was, we hit it off. I remember we were talking in our first conversation about the Cavs.
Yeah.
And this was when, LeBron was in his first 2 or 3 years there. And I got a great LeBron story if you guys want to hear it.
You gotta share that.
But this was just in the early years with the Cavs, and my wife and I were talking about her views on what goes into winning, and this is someone, and I'm just sitting there listening as a coach, and I was just fascinated by someone that had thought along those lines. And she's not even particularly a basketball person. So I knew right there that was definitely someone that I was going to have a connection with.
That's good. 'Cause that was going to be my question. Like, what was it that she said or did that make you just drew you in? You'd be like, you know what? I'm all right with this
Date
right
number
now.
2 is in the works.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah, just I think a connection. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You feel that connection with certain people, and I was just lucky to be in the right place to get a chance to meet her.
So what happened with this LeBron story?
Man, you talk about the right place at the right time. So I got to University of Akron in 2003. That was the spring of LeBron James' senior year in high school.
Okay.
As you guys know, he went to St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akron.
Akron.
An assistant coach on the staff with me at the time was a guy by the name of Keith Dambrot. He's now the head coach at University of Akron. He's been very, very successful there. He's actually coached some guys from the state of Texas.
Oh yeah.
That have done really well there.
Antonio Jackson.
Exactly.
We got one of ours just committed up there. Supposed to sign today.
So Keith is an awesome coach. But at the time, he was an assistant, and I'd never met him. Before he became an assistant, he was LeBron's high school coach for his first and his second year in high school. So my first day on the job, my very first day, he comes into my office, it's right around lunchtime, and he says, "Come on, I want to introduce you to somebody." We get in the car, we drive to this local rec center gym. We get out, we go to the rec center, we get in the gym, and we're just standing there. There's nobody in the rec center because all the kids are in school. It's the middle of the day on a weekday. And we see through the glass doors a Hummer pull up, and it's LeBron James. And he gets out of the car and puts his shoes on, and Keith kind of taps me on the shoulder. He says, "Come on, we're going to work out LeBron." And so for the next 2 months, we proceeded to work out LeBron James. This was between May and when he started Summer League in early July. Obviously, he got drafted during that time. He had already signed a $90 million contract with Nike. And I was just in the right place at the right time where, and Keith is such a special guy and a great friend to even include me in that.
Right, no doubt.
But I learned so much just being around this guy at 18 years old, because as gifted and as physically imposing as he is and was back then, it was his mind just unbelievably off the charts with how much he thought the game.
Wow.
And y'all worked him out for 2 months.
Yeah, about 2-3 times a week. And what happened was every time we would work him out, there would be this huge crowd of people around. I mean, it would be kids, and there would be there'd be Nike personnel there because they gotta look after their investment, and his agent that he had recently hired, and just different people would be around, and you started to really get a sense for, like, this guy is not just a big deal from the standpoint of being a #1 pick, but he's a phenomenon that people want to be around. And again, just for Keith to include me in that, and listen, I didn't really coach him much. I was more the rebounder. And, good shot. Positivity. Again, another area where I got my positivity from. But, it's just fun to kind of follow him over the years after, having had the chance to be around him a little bit there.
Do you still have any contact with LeBron?
When I see him, they used to have the Nike LeBron James Skills Academy. This past year they took that off the open period, but whenever I see him at that, he's always really, really nice. He sent me a really nice text when we went to the Final Four in 2011. But again, just having a chance to follow him from afar. We had 2 of his high school teammates on our team at Akron. So being able to follow those guys' career, they're still playing, and obviously just a special story of the guys that came out of that same high school, led by LeBron, and then seeing what he did going back to Cleveland is pretty special. If you've lived in that area, you've been in that area.
Absolutely.
For that town to get a championship, how starved they were.
Yes.
For something like that is a special thing, and he did it. I mean, it's obviously goes without saying. Without him, it doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. Let's talk about the that magical season, man, in 2011. So I'm sure every year, even this season, you guys come together, your coaching staff, you're talking about expectations, you're talking about how good your team can actually be. What was that talk like with your staff and your players at the beginning of that 2011 season when you guys went on a crazy run and you really made a name for yourself nationally?
Well, we knew that we could have a really good team, but it was only the second year that we were at VCU, so we were still building a program. I mean, it was definitely a work in progress, and that year was an up and down year. We had some real positive things happen, but we also had some setbacks. In fact, during the month of February that year, we had a losing record. So if you can believe it, I mean, we went from having a losing record in the month of February to going on a run in the month of March where we won 5 NCAA tournament games. And that's really unheard of. But what happened was, I mean, you guys have been around it before, when a team comes together and all of a sudden decides, we don't care who gets the credit, we don't care who the leading scorer is, we're going to let coach do the coaching, we're going to do our part, we're going to stay together, we're going to pull for each other, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you can do magical things.
Man, like, I can't front, like, it's not like I used to follow VCU, right? But when y'all got to the tournament, they was talking about, well, Shaka Smart, let me see this. So they say, you got to watch the pregame, you got to watch the practices. And I sit back and I'll say, let me watch it. You come out bumping, chest bump, we got you dove on the floor. I'm like, yo, that's all right. Who is this dude? Let me check this out, right?
And see, for me, it was different because I knew who you were. So I'm like, damn.
Right.
I remember this guy.
Yeah, the hard thing about that is the players all stay the same age, and we keep getting older each year.
I was going to ask you, do you still do that? Are you still? Because I know you went to the what is it, the Marine, the SEALs
Navy
training and
SEALs
everything else.
training.
So you still jumping and gliding and
Well, we do that Navy SEAL training, and we always try to do it right before the season starts, practice starts. And so we did it in September, and I'm such an idiot. We're out there at 6 a.m., and we're not even really warmed up yet. And so the instructor says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to race to this cone, and then you got to run to this one. And so I get in a race, and it's me, Jacob Young, and Kerwin Roach. And I'm racing these guys. I mean, I'm trying to race Kerwin Roach. Think about that. What kind of sense does that make?
He laughing and smiling the whole time.
And so, but you know what? He's probably running about 85, 90%. I'm all out, because I'm trying to be. But I'm okay, because I'm going all out, and he's just looking at me like, who is this guy? I pulled my hamstring.
Oh,
Stop! I pulled my hamstring. I'm 39 years old. I thought to myself afterward, that was the dumbest thing that you've ever done in your life. You're not warmed up. You're trying to race a guy that could be an Olympian.
Right.
And it's 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? So the guys kind of stay the same age, and we get older. But I do think as a younger coach, you got to utilize, your advantage of being a little bit younger than maybe guys that have been doing it 30, 40 years.
Right. Hey, your mind stays young though, man. 'Cause you want to do things like that. I have the same feeling. I always want to be around guys that just want to jump around and play
keeps
with
you
them too.
young,
But it's
man.
just like, wow, just can't do it, man.
It keeps you young. It keeps you abreast of what's going on. I think it was last year. Isaiah Taylor said when you first got the job, you just came to his dorm room. He's like,
Yo,
what is Coach doing here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you did it again. And then for him, it was like, this dude really wants to make a connection with me. It's not about anything but connecting. And, again, it's important to have that connection.
Well, that's one of the biggest challenges when you're new, is you're trying to make that connection, but it wasn't there before. Usually you go through the recruiting process, you get to know guys, their families, people around them. But when you're a new coach, I mean, you got to start from square one. And a guy like Isaiah, Marlon, I mean, he's not the most naturally trusting guy. It takes time.
Yeah.
But once you show him you care about him and you're with him, then he'll go to the wall for you.
Right.
I mean, he'll go, and he's one of the most loyal people. And I think for Isaiah, I really appreciate the fact that he was so receptive to us coming in here, and he didn't have to be that way. He could have been like, who are these guys? I don't have to do it that way. I mean, he almost left after his sophomore year, so he didn't have to be bought in the way that he was, but I'm just so appreciative of the fact that he gave us an opportunity.
And it started with you. You going over there and knock on that door shows that you had an intent on getting a chance to know him, not just him, but even the rest of the guys on the team. So when you do that, like you said, it was probably wasn't something that they were used to before. So when you show some, an approach like that, kids enjoy it. I'm pretty sure, like right now, you could probably call certain kids on the phone right now. They're gonna pick up the phone. Hey, what's up, coach? Cause they just the connection that y'all had, the impression that you left on them, it goes a long way. People tend to take things like that for granted, man.
Well, I think that one of the things that we make the mistake of doing is we look at these guys being big and strong and athletic, and we think that they're just naturally super confident. But they need life breathed into them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They need confidence. They need love.
Right.
It's the same as we were when we were that age. I mean, they're just better players than I was. But there's the same challenges, same doubts and fears and worries and distractions that can come about if you're not careful. So that's a big part of our job, is just trying to help them navigate that.
Right. Now, from the basketball perspective, I'm gonna jump back and then jump right back to right here being at Texas. When you were coming up, who were your basketball heroes that you looked up to? Who were some of the guys that you liked?
Number one hero was Magic Johnson. I mean, not even close. And it's almost 25 years ago to the day was when he announced that he had HIV, and I'll never forget. I cried.
Mm-hmm.
I cried, and I remember saying, why did it have to be him? Why couldn't it have been someone else?
Right.
you know, to see him thrive in the way that he is now is pretty amazing.
Remarkable.
But
Yes, sir.
it was such an abrupt ending to his career because that was my idol.
Right.
And then when he got done playing, you know, I'll be honest, I'm a fair weather guy. I went right to Michael, you know. Hey, listen, Magic ain't gonna play, let me go to Michael.
That's a good progression.
And I'm from the Midwest, so, and my grandfather lived in Chicago my whole childhood, so every time I would go see my grandfather, he would have clippings cut out from the newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, about the Bulls, and I would read all about Michael and all about the stuff behind the scenes that made him who he was. So that's a guy that I always looked up to. And see, now you got these young fellas like Jay Lucas that say Kobe is better than Jordan. And, you know, really, I try to tell Jay, that really takes away from your credibility.
No doubt. Come on, Jay. I've heard him say that for years, so I'm like, oh, Jay. They only remember what the last meal that they ate most of the time. That's what we seen was Kobe most of the time.
Yeah,
That's
interesting. It's still Jordan. I don't see anybody, even what LeBron is doing and what could potentially do over the next, what he may have 6-8 more
7,
years
8
maybe to play.
Uh-huh. Got a lot of miles on it too.
Still won't surpass Jordan with 6 rings, and obviously he's lost in the finals as well. So
Now check this out. Where were you at when you got the call about the University of Texas?
Well, I was, when I took the job or when I got the initial call?
Initial call.
Well, you know, everything now is done through search firms.
Okay.
So I think the initial call I got, I don't know where I was, but it was, you know, it was a week or two before, you know, I ended up taking the job. The thing that's crazy about our jobs is things happen so fast.
Right.
I mean, it really doesn't make any sense, but it has to be that way just because kids are involved and you know, guys can make decisions and make changes quickly. So I literally got the job on a Thursday night. I told the athletic director I had to tell my team at VCU before anything got announced publicly. So I accepted the job. I went and told my team. That was incredibly hard. That was incredibly emotional. And then TJ Ford got me on the phone with like 6, 7, 8 Longhorn legends that are in the NBA. I mean, he lined it up. It was a prototypical point guard. I mean, he's texting me, okay, LaMarcus is available. Call him. Katie's about to call you. I mean, it's unbelievable how he set that up. But
Really?
the next day,
Uh-huh.
so I got the job Thursday night. Friday, I'm on a plane coming down here to Austin. I'd never been in Austin in my life.
There it is.
I'm on a plane coming down here. We get ready to do a press conference, and things just happen at warp speed.
wow. So within 24 hours, you got the job, told your team, talked to LaMarcus Aldridge, KD, and then flew to Austin?
Yeah, it all happened so fast.
Damn.
And think about it. You lived in a place for 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's the longest I've lived anywhere since I was a kid. And you build up relationships and people that you've gotten to know, and now you have to leave in a matter of hours. Well, how do you handle that? How do you say goodbye? How do you, you know, it's really, like I said, our profession doesn't make much sense. I ended up going back in August for a couple of days and getting a chance to see a bunch of folks that I hadn't been able to see during that quick transition. But I got down here and I was just so, you know, I was just trying to get my head above water to breathe. Because when you come to Texas, it's such a big state, it's such a big place, there's so many different people to get to know. There's so many people that know basketball and are involved in basketball in this state. You know, I was completely ignorant about the, you know, maybe a Houston-Dallas rivalry or different entities or stuff like that. So I had to learn, you know, and I'm still learning. I've been here for about 18 months. I still got a lot of stuff to figure out, but at least I feel like, man, I've learned a lot, you know, of just about how things work here. Because it is different, you know, it's a different place. And one thing about Texas, I mean, there's a lot of pride here. You know, people take pride in the University of Texas. They take pride in the high school basketball here, the grassroots basketball here, and for good reason, because there's a lot of terrific things that have been done in this state over the years.
How was Maya when you said, babe,
We got to move.
How'd you come to her? Because
No, she came to me. You know, so Maya she's the one that really balances me out. I don't like change. You know, I like, man, I got the same raggedy pair of jeans that I was wearing 15 years ago, and you know,
so you got that turtleneck too.
I probably have the turtleneck. I've retired now, but I have it. So I'm not very good with change. She's the one that always wants a new challenge and to do something different, and so she was all in, you know, from the beginning. And for me, I just kind of had to wrap my mind around change. But what I've learned is it's hard to grow and become the best you can become if you're not willing to change and go through a little bit of discomfort.
Mm. And when you got a chance to really see this whole 40 acres, was it kind of like, was it something new to you? Like, you're like, whoa. Was it like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great, unbelievable institution to begin with. I mean, before you even talk about athletics, and again, the level of pride that people have. I mean, there's only one University of Texas. There's only one Longhorn brand. And these folks here, you know, it is such a central part of their identity. Mm-hmm. And now we as a family, we're becoming part of that. So now it's a huge part of our identity. And you had to learn about it quickly.
Talk about that transition because, you know, prior to you, Rick Barnes was here for what seemed like forever,
14, 17,
right?
Something like that.
Yeah. And so now you're coming in, kind of very similar as Coach Strong, you know, just kind of coming in and changing and putting your imprint on, you know, the culture of the program. And you know, how was that for you?
Well, you know, there's a few different parts of that transition. Most importantly, there's a transition with the team. So internally with the guys you're coaching. There's a transition with everyone else associated with the university, so administration, people on campus, alumni, folks like that. And then just as important is a transition, you know, getting to know folks around this state. That's very, very important. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a lot of people in this state that have invested a lot into basketball. They've invested a lot into kids. Mm-hmm. And the reality is when you come in as a newcomer, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, hey, okay, we appreciate what you did at VCU. We see what you did, but now you're in Texas. Now you're in the state of Texas. And we want to get to know what you're all about, what you're going to do with our kids, and the way that you're going to interact with us. So you're trying to make all those different transitions at one time. And as you mentioned, you're replacing a guy that if you look at his career over, I think Coach Barnes was here 17, 18 years, was very, very successful.
No doubt. And
went to a ton of NCAA tournaments, had a lot of success, produced a ton of pros. I believe since the year 2000, there's been 18, 19 NBA players that have come from the University of Texas, and that was something that he oversaw. And so, you know, for us, one of the things we had to do when we got here was get the players to understand, okay, there's been a coaching change. Now it's on all of us, players and coaches, to create the level of success that you guys want to have as a team and individually. You can't blame it on anyone else that's not here anymore.
Right.
We have to come together and take accountability for what's going to go into that success.
That's strong. That's smart. Excuse me. Hey. No, I can agree with that because people don't realize that the state of Texas, man, until you've been here, I mean, you can put 4 or 5 other states inside of it. So when you kind of recruiting a region of your own, you don't realize how big it is until you get here. And like you said, everybody's got cliques and they get people get into their feelings and things. You're like, man, Coach Smart, man. I mean, I even like, I gotta find. Let me see who this guy is. You know, I can't front on that. But then you get a chance to talk and you be like, look. We talked before. I'm like, look, I'm cool with you, but I got to get a chance to get a feel for what's going on, you know. So it takes some time, and I mean, what you did last year, you know, just right away. But I tell you, one of the biggest things that people talk about, a lot of the guys, whether it was Isaiah Taylor, somebody else. One of the guys, it was 2 guys that made was the biggest impression for me from as far as what you made, the impact you made on them right away. From my personal, I remember Prince eBay when he was in the middle school. And I remember Cameron Ridley. And nobody used to ever call Cameron cheese. Because he never, Cameron never used to smile or anything.
No emotions.
And Prince was always just kind of, you know, nobody, they threw him in the back. They kind of forgot about him. And whether it was through an injury or whatever, however it got, the guys started believing you. You know, they were working hard, and you kind of remember, you're like, look, this is the kid I remember a long time ago. You know, people might have forgot about it, he might not have worked, whatever, but he's showing action now. He's playing and having fun, and the team is winning, you know, so
No doubt.
it was just about getting it, you know, making them feel good about themselves and getting a connection because
Well, for those two guys, I mean, they have so much good things inside of them. It was a matter of pulling it out. And those guys, they're very different from each other. I mean, Cam Ridley's a fun-loving kid who's a big teddy bear, and he's a guy that, man, you just wanted to light a fire inside of him because you knew all the, I mean, the guy's got unbelievable gifts. I mean, for someone that size, the way that he can move, the way he can run, the way his touch, those sorts of things. And I felt like he was really, really moving in a terrific direction. He was averaging about 13 and 10, and he came down wrong on that foot and broke his foot in late December. And that was just it was a heartbreaking injury. I remember seeing Isaiah in practice the next day, and he had this distraught look on his face. You know, Isaiah can be. And I said, we're gonna be all right, Isaiah. And Isaiah looked at me and said, no, we're not. So that, you know, that's part of your job as a coach is, you know, you got to get a guy to move on and understand, hey, we don't have a choice but to try to move forward. And I said to Isaiah, well, you know what? We've got to get Prince eBay to the point where he can be the very best version of himself. He doesn't need to be Cam because he's a different player. Right. But he can be highly effective in his own right doing what he does. And I think for Prince, I give him all the credit. He really took ownership and said, I've got to make this happen. I got to make this work. I've never seen a guy change his practice habits so aggressively. I've never seen a guy be more engaged, and he helped us win a lot of games.
Last year you guys had I think it was either an ESPN special or Longhorn Network special. It might have been about 4 or 5 episodes. And one thing I remember was the days of the week you guys had accountability Thursdays, and can you talk about that and kind of where did you get that from? Because I felt excited. I wanted to hoop.
Well, I mean, come on down, man. No, we have 5 core values in our program that we try to promote, and you know, like anybody else, we're trying to help our guys move forward in those areas, but we're far from perfect. I mean, we're not putting those things up on the wall saying, okay, we're going to be perfect in these areas, and we have a corner on the market in these different areas. But what we do sometimes just to try to strengthen them in our guys' minds is we'll associate them with the day of the week, particularly during the off season. So the first one's appreciation, and so we make that on Mondays. And I just feel like at a place like Texas, you got to be really careful as a coach or as a student athlete and guard against complacency. You can't feel like, oh, I've arrived, you know, because this is a really great place to be. You're here on full scholarship, or in my case, you know, you get a job here. You can't feel like, oh, okay, this is the be-all and end-all, and I've done everything I want to do. No, we haven't done anything yet. We haven't done anything. We got to go make it happen. And as a student athlete, don't just be happy to have that brand on your on your chest. Go make something happen and be appreciative of this opportunity, but go after it. So we try to attach a core value to each day of the week. This past summer we have, you know, dry fit shirts with the definition. We make our guys memorize the definition of each one because we have our own program definition that might be different than what it says in the dictionary. But you know what ends up happening, guys, is when they're part of the program, they listen and they kind of buy in because they have to. But then when they get out and they're 23, 25, 27, guys always come back to me and they say, I'm really glad that you really promoted appreciation or promoted accountability or, you know, competitiveness, because this is really helping me now.
No doubt.
The reality is, as coaches, a lot of what we do, I mean, you guys know this, is delayed gratification. You know, they're not necessarily going to get it today or tomorrow.
Right.
But down the road, if they get it, then you feel like, man, I was able to at least help this guy figure this out.
No, they appreciate it later for sure. You know, hey,
Yeah, I
man,
mean-
I appreciate it. It just hit me, Coach. Sometimes they might even call you, Coach. I get it now.
I mean, I'm still in touch with Stat Sellinger to this day. And, you know, like you said, at 18, 19 years old, the stuff he was telling us, like, bro, I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
You know, but as I've gotten older, I have children as well, you apply those things to your life, and you kind of wish you would have listened earlier on. And that's
listen,
the toughest part about it.
Here's the thing, I tell people this all the time. So, guys are spoiled now. They don't play a lot of outdoor basketball. But when we were kids,
No doubt.
we played outside.
I'm talking about that on the way up here.
And so, remember when you would go to the park and play, there was always an old guy there, and he was always wearing like jean shorts or something, halfway down his butt, but he always had game. You know what I mean? Like post game, he could back you in.
The high socks.
He knew how to throw it in off the glass. Like he had that nuanced game because he'd been playing for a long time. And those old guys at the park would always say, young fella, if I knew when I was your age what I know now, I would have made it all the way to the NBA, or I would have played high-level D1, or whatever it is. And you always look at those guys like, yeah, whatever. But the reality is that's what our job comes down to. Can we get young players to learn now what we wish we would have known at that point?
Right.
And if we can, we'll be successful. And
That's
so
the challenge.
if you look at the best coaches in college basketball or at any level, they're able to do that. Now, they have different methods. Everyone has different ways of doing it. But, the Mike Krzyzewskis of the world or the Tubby Smiths or the guys that have done it at the highest level, those guys have consistently been able to teach those lessons and get guys to apply them on the court and off the court.
Well, you got a challenge with this group because I know a lot of your guys, they so talented, but their personalities are just so different.
Yeah.
You got the big Jared. He's quiet, but he's competitive. You got Jacob Young. He's energetic. He'll be dancing. And the guy, I hadn't really met him, but I watched him from a distance. I said, that dude got some charisma and character. Eric Davis.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, that's a good group, right? Just not take the basketball aside. We know they're all talented, but just from a personality standpoint, you're like, that's a good group.
They're a lot of fun to be around, and they, you learn things from those guys just being around them. I'm not even talking about on the court, because they're bright kids. But now the challenge is, can you get them to mesh together to create a cohesive unit that's going to try to accomplish a common goal? And the thing that we've tried to get them to understand is you need each other more than you think you do. And I'm not just talking for team success. I'm talking for individual success. If you want to have the type of season individually you want to have, you need the guys around you. And again, that's something that we all know better than we did when we were teenagers.
Right.
And now we're trying to get these guys at that young age to get it. But our biggest challenge is we're young, we need maturation, we need growth. And the question is, how quickly can that happen? I think we will be a different team a month from now than we are now, and hopefully 2 months from now we're a different team and a better team than we are a month from now. But that's our job as coaches to make that happen.
I think it will.
So you landed 2 Mickey D's players this year with Jared and Andrew. Just talk about those 2 guys, and again you mentioned coming here and kind of diving into the waters of recruiting, and Jared is from Austin, so you probably would have lost a lot of fanfare if you couldn't land that down.
Well, it's funny because when we first got here, a lot of people said, well, you have to get them. And I don't think you can really look at recruiting that way, because at the end of the day, it's up to the young man.
No doubt.
So it's you're going to do everything you can do.
Absolutely.
But if you look at it that way, you're really misguided in that the young man's going to make a decision whenever he makes a decision. And Jared, waited for a while to do that. But one of the things that I respected from day one about him is he valued his basketball, his school stuff, his off-the-court stuff, much more than recruiting. He wasn't a guy that was like really into the recruiting fanfare, didn't really want to talk to coaches a whole lot, wasn't big on the glitz and glamour at different schools. And, that probably is part of what, helped us, get him to come to Texas, is because some of the things that he wasn't really about, were things that maybe other schools tried to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great lesson in recruiting of you got to get to know, what
Who
a
you
kid is
dealing
all
with.
about.
Yeah, because if you're trying, I know Big J very well. If you're trying to go with him, like you said, with a song and dance and a pony show, he's like,
Nah,
man, that ain't it. That's not-
You know what the biggest thing was, and this is something I keep in mind every day, not just with Jared but with all our guys, is when I saw him play with Texas Pro,
Uh-huh.
when I saw him play with his high school team, you could see if he was having fun, that he was going to do really, really well. I mean, his talent was able to take over, and he was going to be impactful on his teammates, and things were going to go well. So I think him enjoying the game, I noticed and learned about him, was essential.
Mhm.
And, we hear all the time in basketball, people will say, this is a business or this is serious or whatever it is. And I understand that frame of mind, but just knowing for him, it's important every day that when we take the court in practice, we try to create an atmosphere where he can enjoy what he's doing. As you mentioned, Marlon, he's extremely competitive. That's no issue. I mean, he's going to compete. If there's a guy to go against that's trying to stop him from scoring or try to score on him, he has a natural competitiveness about him that I really appreciate.
Mr. Contest everything.
Man.
Yeah, he's going after everything, every block shot. He's a really, really good kid. But like you said, you got to get to know him. And once you get to know him, you can see what really makes him tick. What about Andrew?
Andrew's just a great kid who comes from a terrific family like Jared. Both of them come from really good family backgrounds. And for Andrew, in his situation, he was a late bloomer.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew late and he developed late. And it's a great example of why recruiting in Texas is not just about, okay, let's look at the top 5 guys in the class, maybe in their sophomore year, and let's recruit those guys. Because what happens is, you see examples all over the state and even guys that leave the state. Guys become way better than what people thought when they were sophomore, junior, or maybe even a senior.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as an assistant at Clemson coming in here and trying to recruit Jimmy Butler at Tyler Junior College.
Mm.
And I remember going to see him, and he was a guy, he went to junior college not because of academics.
Right.
He could have
He
gone
had enough,
Division I right away, but he didn't have the type of offers that he wanted to have. So I went in there, and I knew I was in trouble when I got there because Buzz Williams was there, and Tom Crean had just taken the Indiana job. And they had another guy committed to Marquette on that same Tyler team. And I just kind of put 2 and 2 together. This isn't going to work out so well for us. But that's a great example of a guy. What was he rated?
He wasn't. They had to beg teams to try to take him for low major. They wouldn't take him.
And now we're talking about a max salary
Yeah.
player
Yeah.
in the NBA.
Yeah.
And there's examples of that every year
Mm-hmm.
in Texas. There's examples of, so it's not as simple as, let me just look at
Look at the
the
rankings.
rankings. You got to really pay attention. And even some of the guys that go to some of the supposedly mid-major schools, like a guy like Walkup who went to Stephen F. Austin.
No doubt. Thomas.
He turned into a absolute assassin.
Yes.
And those are guys, that's why I tell our staff every day, we got to look not just at the rankings, but we got to really pay attention and watch because those late bloomers, you got to look for those guys.
You got to see a talent to be able to project what they're going to be sometime based upon what you're able to put them through. So that's important.
Well, I think that's why it's so important in this state to listen. You got to listen to what people say. Because the reality is with our recruiting rules, we just are not allowed to be around these guys as much as certain other folks in this state.
Right.
So if a high school coach or a grassroots coach or a guy that travels around and watches guys says, hey, you may want to take a hard look. Here's a 2019 kid who's got unbelievable potential. You need to take a hard look at him. We would be really, really foolish not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be negligent of us to do that.
Well, hey, look, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Big Shaq,
Oh, yeah.
Snoop, Tevin Mack, all the Longhorn guys, the Longhorn family. I ain't have the chance to meet everybody personally, but I know them when I see them. You know, that's one of your big signs that you made it almost. You're in the right spot when people know who you are without even knowing you personally. But
Well, and I got to mention, we just got our letters of intent this morning. And we signed 2 Houston kids, in addition to a kid named Jericho Sims from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
big Jericho.
And who I know you guys competed against. He's got a really bright future. But the 2 Houston kids, Jace Febris, who Texas pro guy, another guy who, if you look at where he was ranked, a year or 2 ago, you missed the boat. But man, is he heading in the direction of being a terrific player at this level. And then, Royce Ham being a guy that, we saw when we first got here. I never forget my first weekend kind of split between the Adidas and the Nike. And when I saw him play, I said, man, this is a guy we really need to take a strong look at. And we're just fortunate to have those 3 guys joining our program and excited about what this class can be.
I'm excited about what the future is, and I'm excited, looking forward to seeing it and being a part of it, to be honest with you. So we appreciate you taking your time and joining us, man. And,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
this is all basically about not just Texas basketball, but it's about Shaka Smart. Get a chance to just know who Coach Smart is.
Yeah.
You didn't know that he was a pancake connoisseur until you listened to the song.
You guys pulled some stuff out.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate you guys having me, and welcome back anytime, or I'll come down to Houston and do it again. But just know I appreciate. One of the things I love about being in this area is basketball matters. It matters to people. And there's certain areas of this country where it's not as big of a deal, but it seems like over the last 15, 20 years, basketball in this state has just taken off. And maybe it'll never reach the trajectory of football, but I mean, it's
Getting close.
It's come really, really close where it's so important to people year round. And I, for one, I really appreciate being in a place like that.
No doubt.
And we good.
Thanks,
Had
Coach.
a
I
great
appreciate
time,
it,
man.
Thank you guys.
Enjoy.
man.
Yeah.
It's the summer.
Thanks, fellas.
Oh man. Oh. Whew. Thank you.
Sad Sullinger.
Dude, man.
Hey.
You guys want all the assistants and morale together?